The trenches of a death world are not places for the living. They are graveyards that breathe, soaked in blood, smoke, and desperation. The ground itself seems alive, pulling at boots and swallowing the fallen. Every step sinks into mud mixed with oil, ash, and human remains. The air burns your throat, thick with the smell of gunpowder and rot. The horizon flashes red with lost fire, each beam lighting faces streaked with sweat and grime, faces too young to carry such terror. Some whisper prayers as they reload. Others curse the Emperor under their breath for another sunrise in this hell. The only constant sound is the distant thunder of artillery and the closer, sharper screams of the dying. And above it all, like a steady drumbeat, comes the chant of the regimental priest, his voice raw and unshaken. The Emperor protects, the words echo through the mud, repeated by soldiers who barely believe them anymore. When a guardsman falls, his brothers shout for a medic, not because they expect a miracle, but because shouting is the only thing they can do. Somewhere behind the front, a Medicae hears it. He moves through the chaos, ducking explosions, clutching a battered kit against his chest. His boots splash through puddles of blood. He doesn't run towards safety. He runs towards suffering. But the Medicae stations of the Astra Militarum are not hospitals. They are not places of hope. They are factories of triage, brutal, efficient, and cold. Here, mercy is not measured in compassion but in usefulness. The question is never, can this man be saved? It is, should he be? The wounded arrive by the dozens, sometimes by the hundreds. Servitors drag stretchers made of barbed wire and wood. Some men still scream. Others are silent, their eyes already empty. The Medicae move quickly, hands soaked in red, eyes hollow from exhaustion. They sort the living from the dead, and the dying from the useful. A guardsman with a clean wound gets morphia and a prayer. A man with his intestines in his hands gets a shot of painkiller and the Emperor's blessing. Efficiency becomes a kind of faith, a ritual performed so many times that it no longer feels cruel. On the Emperor's battlefields, human suffering is sorted like supplies. One pile for those who can return to the fight, another for those who can't, and for the last, those too far gone, those whose screams will not stop. The Medicae deliver a final mercy, a clean bolt round to the temple, quick, holy, necessary. The Emperor's grace applied with steady hands, even for the surgeons. It's hard to tell where mercy ends and murder begins. The line blurs after the 100th amputation, the 1000th death. They do not ask questions anymore. They only act. The living must fight. The dying must make room. That is the logic of the Imperium. Cold, simple, efficient. But not every world has the luxury of steel and medicine. On the more primitive planets, the ones where technology has long since fallen, the Medicae's tools are little more than knives, herbs, and prayers. In these places, the battlefield looks like something from the Dark Ages. Medics chant over the wounded while pouring foul-smelling mixtures into open wounds. Blood is staunched with dirt and faith. Limbs are burned shut with torches blessed by clerics. And yet, somehow, some survive. The Emperor's light, they say, but more often, it is just luck. On the more advanced worlds, Medicae teams carry chain blades, auto syringes, and diagnostic tools from forgotten golden ages. The chain blade was not as a weapon but as a surgical saw. The auto syringe hisses as it injects stims and coagulants in perfect doses. These medics are soldiers and scientists both, trained in the sacred art of keeping the Emperor's servants alive, or sending them to him swiftly. Their creed is simple: save who can fight again, release who cannot. Anything else is wasted in the grim logic of the Imperium. There is no sentiment. A soldier who lingers in agony becomes a drain, on rations, on time, on morale. Infection spreads faster than courage. Disease kills more efficiently than the enemy. So the Medicae act without hesitation. A clean death, they say, is kinder than a slow one. The Emperor's mercy delivered through steel. The Medicae skill, as the scholars of the Mechanicus recorded, is a sacred discipline. It is not merely healing, it is calculation. Diagnosis is a form of judgment. Treatment is a form of faith. A Medicae must know which lives to fight for, which to let go, and which to end. Their manuals speak in cold terms: suturing, counterseptic, narthecium deployment. But behind every line of text lies blood and screams. To treat a wound, they say, is to wage a war against entropy itself. And the Imperium only wages wars it intends to win. Picture a triage tent under a crimson sky. Inside, the heat is unbearable, the air buzzing with flies and the hum of generators. The ground is slick with blood. A surgeon stands over a table, his hands trembling as he works. The soldier beneath him is pale, half-conscious, his uniform cut away. The surgeon's assistant, a servitor with mechanical arms, chants a binary prayer as it passes tools. The doctor clamps, cuts, and sews. There's no anesthesia, just a rag to bite on and a whispered prayer. The man lives for now. Outside, another 20 wait their turn. A few meters away, a different scene. A guardsman lies still, his chest caved in from shrapnel. A young Medicae kneels beside him, unsure what to do. His superior glances over, eyes dead from too many nights. He's done, he says flatly. Give him the Emperor's piece. The young medic hesitates, then raises his pistol. He murmurs the sacred words, go with honor, brother. The shot echoes. Another tally mark in the ledger of mercy. This is how the Imperium survives, not through compassion, but through control. Suffering is not chaos here. It is order. Pain is measured, managed, categorized. Even agony must serve the Emperor. And yet, even in this machine of war, humanity refuses to die completely. There are moments when a Medicae breaks the rules, stays longer with a patient who can't be saved, risks punishment to spare someone pain, uses forbidden medicine because it might help. These small rebellions are never written down, but they matter, because in a world where mercy has become a system, these tiny acts of real kindness are what keep the Medicae human. On some battlefields, stories spread of the silent healer, a Medicae who refused to sort the wounded by rank or usefulness. He treated everyone he could, friend or foe, officer or conscript. When his superiors discovered this, they accused him of heresy. He was executed, but before he died, he said, "The Emperor's mercy belongs to all." The words live on, whispered quietly in field tents across the stars. Every Medicae knows the statistics. For every 100 wounded, perhaps 10 will live long enough to fight again. Another 20 will live, but never hold a gun. The rest, gone. But those 10 matter. Those 10 are the proof that the Imperium's engine still works, that the cycle of death and rebirth continues. When night falls, and the guns go quiet for a few hours, the trenches change. The light fades to blue and gray, and the cries of pain echoes after. Medicae move through the lines, lanterns flickering. They check pulses, change dressings, whisper prayers. Some sing old songs from their homeworlds, soft lullabies that no one remembers the words to anymore. In those moments, surrounded by ruin, something fragile survives, compassion. But dawn always comes. The shells begin again, and the process starts over. The wounded pour in. The surgeons work until their hands shake. The triage clerks mark names and ranks until the ink runs out. The servitors shovel the bodies into pits. The Medicae take one breath, one prayer, and keep going. Because there is no end. Only the Emperors will. To an outsider, it may seem monstrous. How can they decide who lives and who dies? How can they treat mercy like a formula? But for those who live in the trenches, there's no time for philosophy. Choices are made in seconds. One life here means 10 saved later. One bullet of mercy now prevents a slow death later. It's not cruelty. It's mathematics painted in blood. The Medicae learn to stop thinking of the faces. They stop listening to names. To survive, they must become part of the system. Another cog in the great machine. But sometimes, when the battlefield goes quiet, they remember. A face they couldn't save. A voice that begged. A scream that still echoes in dreams. These ghosts follow them through every campaign. The Medicae bear them all. Silent witnesses to the cost of survival. And so the trenches continue. The mud never dries. The blood never stops. The Medicae keep sorting suffering, turning chaos into order, despair into numbers. And in that endless cycle, they find a strange kind of faith. Not in victory, but in endurance. They believe that every wound treated, every soul released, pushes back the darkness, even if only by an inch, because in this galaxy, where compassion is a liability and mercy a weapon, the Medicae remains something rare, proof that even in hell, humanity still tries to heal itself. So when the next cry of medic rings out across the trenches of a death world, and a lone figure rises from the mud to answer it, know this, what he carries in his hands is not just bandages and syringes, it's mercy. Hard, cold, terrible mercy. The kind that keeps the Imperium alive. And as always, when the work is done, and the screams fade to whispers, a single phrase hangs in the air like smoke. The Emperor protects. In the endless wars of the Imperium, heroes are not always the ones with medals, banners, or stories sung by bards. Some heroes walk unnoticed through the mud, covered in blood that isn't their own. They carry no power swords or relics of honor, only a bag filled with bandages, stems, and tools made for cutting flesh. They are called Field Chirurgeons, the medics of the Astra Militarum. To most, they are ghosts in the trenches, appearing when hope is gone and leaving before anyone can thank them. The Astra Militarum, the Imperial Guard, is the beating heart of the Emperor's armies. It is made of men and women from a million worlds, each one thrown into battle with a lost gun, a helmet, and a prayer. They fight, they die, and new ones take their place. The machine never stops. In that machine, the Field Chirurgeon is a small cog, but without them, the gears would grind to dust. They are not doctors from grand academies or scholars from the spires of Terra. They are soldiers first, healers second. Every chirurgeon begins as a guardsman, trained to fight, to shoot, to kill. Only after surviving the impossible do they earn the title of medic. Their classroom is the battlefield. Their exams are the screams of the wounded. Every mistake is written in blood. You'll find them crouched behind rocks and burned out tanks, hands slick with crimson, whispering to the Emperor while their comrades bleed beneath them. They know anatomy not from books but from experience, from 1,000 wounds opened and closed. They know exactly how long a man can last after losing a leg, how fast stims can push a failing heart, how much pain a soldier can endure before his mind breaks down in the chaos of combat. There's no time for careful surgery. The Field Chirurgeon works fast, brutal, and efficient. A man takes a lost bolt to the arm. The chirurgeon doesn't hesitate. He slaps on a tourniquet, burns the wound shut with a hot blade, and injects a stim that floods the soldier's veins with adrenaline. "You're fine," he growls. "Get back up. The Emperor needs you." And somehow, the soldier stands. Somehow, he fights again. Their tools are simple: bandages soaked in counterseptic, syringes filled with combat drugs, knives for cutting and clamping. But in the heat of battle, even these are luxuries. Sometimes, when the medkit runs dry, they improvise. The same bayonet that spilled enemy blood becomes a surgical tool. An empty ammo pouch becomes a sling. The edge of a shovel cauterizes a wound. In the hands of a field chirurgeon, anything can save a life, or end one. They move with the rhythm of war, ducking gunfire, dragging bodies out of the line of sight, shouting orders over the roar of artillery. They never stop, not even when the air turns to fire or when their own armor splits from shrapnel. Pain is irrelevant. What matters is the man beside them, the one who still breathes. A chirurgeon doesn't see soldiers. He sees puzzles of bone and blood waiting to be solved. Every regiment has their own kind of medic. Some worlds produce grim pragmatists who treat medicine as another form of logistics. Others give birth to saints in uniform, healers who pray as they cut, who believe each life saved is another spark in the Emperor's grand design. Among them, the Catachan jungle fighters are legend. In the poisonous swamps of their death world, every soldier learns to treat venom, sow flesh, and amputate with a machete if they have to. Their field chirurgeons are hard as the terrain they come from, half warrior, half surgeon, all survivor. Catachan medics don't wait for permission to act. When a soldier collapses from a toxin, they cut deep, suck out the poison, and inject stims until the body either fights or dies. They have a saying: pain means you're still alive, and to them, that's enough reason to keep going. The Emperor, they say, does not waste the strong, and in the jungle, mercy is just another word for weakness. A chirurgeon's life is a strange mix of discipline and madness. Every time they go into battle, they know they might die not from a gunshot, but from infection, explosion, or exhaustion. And yet, they walk into the fire willingly. When the charge is called, they move with their squad. When the shooting starts, they duck and crawl, always looking for the next wounded comrade. They drag men out from under tank treads, patch them up in ditches, and push them back to fight. They are the invisible hands that keep the guard from collapsing completely. There are moments that define them, quiet flashes of humanity hidden between the screams. A chirurgeon dragging a soldier into a crater while shells rain down. His gloves are gone, his hands slick. The soldier's pulse is weak. He grips the man's collar, presses a bandage to the wound, and tightens a tourniquet made from his own belt. The soldier groans, eyes rolling back. The medic whispers, "Not today, brother." The Emperor's watching. Then he pulls a stim from his pack and injects it straight into the heart. The man gasps, coughs, and starts breathing again. The medic smiles faintly, wipes his hands, and moves on to the next scream. But there are darker moments too. When a wound is too deep, when there's nothing left to save, the chirurgeon must make a choice. Sometimes the choice isn't his. The commissar, the grim overseer of the regiment, watches every move. If the medic wastes supplies or time on a hopeless case, the commissar intervenes. A bolt pistol pressed to the wounded man's skull. "Mercy," the commissar says, and pulls the trigger. The medic looks away, clenches his jaw, and keeps working. That sound, the bolt pistol's roar, becomes the rhythm of his nightmares. Some chirurgeons write down the names of those they treat. A habit, a ritual. In the rare hours between battles, they sit by dim lights and scribble in blood-stained notebooks. Lists of names. Those saved. Those sent to the Emperor. Sometimes the ink runs. Sometimes the paper tears. But the ritual continues. It is their way of keeping track, of proving to themselves that their work matters, that the dead are not forgotten. Each name carries weight, a fragment of guilt, pride, or sorrow. The chirurgeon knows he cannot save everyone, but he can remember them. In a galaxy that forgets faster than it kills, remembering is its own kind of rebellion. Their training is not gentle. Before they ever step onto the battlefield, chirurgeons are drilled in the cold efficiency of imperial medicine. They learn how to stop bleeding in 6 seconds or less, how to reattach a limb with basic augmetics, how to stabilize a heart punctured by shrapnel. They study anatomy under the watch of tech priests who treat flesh like faulty machinery. They memorize litanies to calm the dying and prayers to purge infection. The difference between a surgeon and a chirurgeon is simple. One works in peace, the other in chaos. When the battle ends, if it ends, the medics are the last to rest. They stay behind in the mud, checking for faint pulses, listening for shallow breaths. They gather dog tags, say last rites, and burn the bodies that can't be saved. Their job doesn't stop when the guns do. It stops when no one else needs them, or when they collapse from exhaustion, whichever comes first. And yet, for all their skill, for all their bravery, the field chirurgeons are rarely honored. No parades, no songs. Their names fade into reports and ledgers. Casualties reduced by 12%, the officers write. Medical efficiency improved. But behind those statistics are lives, soldiers who got one more sunrise, one more chance to fight. The chirurgeons don't ask for thanks. The fact that someone lived is enough. Some say they are cold, detached, that they've seen too much to care. But that's not true. They care too much, and that's what hurts. Every wound they close, every breath they save, comes with a cost. It's not their own life they fear losing, it's their humanity. Because to survive as a healer in the Emperor's endless war, you must learn to silence the part of you that screams when someone dies. Still, there are moments, small ones, that make it all worth it. A soldier waking up and whispering a weak thank you. A commander nodding silently in respect. A child, rescued from the rubble, clutching the medic's hand before vanishing into the crowd. These moments are the sparks that keep the chirurgeons alive, even when the world around them burns. There are stories whispered in mess halls and camps about medics who performed the impossible. One story tells of a chirurgeon on Cadia who treated 50 wounded in one night, under constant bombardment. When the morning came, he was found slumped against the wall, still holding his instruments. He had died hours earlier, but his last patient had lived. Another tells of a medic on Armageddon who stitched a soldier's severed hand back on using his own hair as thread. In this galaxy, miracles are rare, but sometimes they happen. To be a field chirurgeon is to live in the space between life and death, between duty and compassion. They are soldiers who heal, killers who save, believers who doubt. Every action they take carries the weight of the Emperor's will, and though they will never stand among saints or generals, their hands shape the fate of armies. In the trenches, when hope is gone and the wounded cry out, no one calls for a hero. They call for a medic, and when that medic arrives, crawling through smoke, blood, and fear, the whole regiment knows one thing. The Emperor's mercy has arrived. He doesn't wear a halo. He doesn't shinso when the next cry of medic rings out across the trenches of a death world, and a lone figure rises from the mud to answer it. Know this, what he carries in his hands is not just bandages and syringes. It's mercy. Hard, cold, terrible mercy. The kind that keeps the Imperium alive. In the far reaches of the Imperium, not all who heal wear the armor of soldiers. Some wear habits of white and black, their hands steady and their eyes calm. They move through battlefields like ghosts of mercy, carrying not banners but bandages, not relic blades but saws, syringes, and holy oils. They are the Sisters of the Orders Hospitaler, the healers of the Adepta Sororitas, sworn to the Officio Medicae, and bound by faith deeper than iron. They are called many names, the Sisters of Mercy, the Handmaidens of Healing, the Silent Angels. But in truth, they are something much more, living proof that even in the darkest empire mankind has ever built, compassion has not yet completely died. The Orders Hospitaler trace their beginnings to the time of the Great Crusade, 10,000 years ago, when the Emperor still walked among men. Back then, they were not yet divided into militant and non-militant orders. Every sister was both warrior and caretaker, trained to wield a bolter and a scalpel with equal grace. But when the wars of faith began to consume the galaxy, some among them laid down their weapons and took up the sacred charge of healing alone. These became the Hospitalers, the physicians of the faith. Their mission is simple to speak but impossible to live: to bring the Emperor's mercy wherever there is pain, to treat the wounded of the Imperium, whether they wear the armor of the guard, the robes of a cleric, or the rags of a beggar, to serve without question, without rest, and without fear. You will find them everywhere the Imperium bleeds: in the ruins of hive cities after bombardments, in the shattered hulls of void ships drifting through space, in refugee camps on worlds that have forgotten the sun, and, most often, in the trenches, standing shoulder to shoulder with Imperial Guard Medicae, patching up soldiers who can still stand, and granting the Emperor's peace to those who cannot. They are not strangers to battle. Each sister carries a bolt pistol at her hip, not for glory, but for duty. In her other hand may be a saw, a syringe, or a bone drill, the tools of her order. She will use both without hesitation, one to save life, the other to end it. In her heart there is no contradiction, only obedience. Imagine her on the field, white robes stained red, walking through the smoke. Around her lie hundreds of wounded soldiers, some screaming, some silent. She kneels beside one, presses a hand to his chest, and whispers a prayer. Her voice is soft, almost drowned by the thunder of cannons. The Emperor watches. Be still. She works quickly, sealing wounds, injecting pain suppressants. Another explosion shakes the ground, but she doesn't flinch. She's been here too many times. When she looks up, her eyes meet a commissar's. He nods once, wordless respect. But there are others she cannot save. When the wounds are too deep, when infection has already taken hold, when the soul has begun to fade, then the bolt pistol comes out. She presses it gently to the forehead, whispers the last rites, and pulls the trigger. One clean shot, no suffering, no hesitation. That too is mercy. Years of training prepare her for that moment. Each Sister Hospitaler spends decades in Sanctuaria, massive hospital barges that drift through space like holy cathedrals. Inside, every hall echoes with hymns and the low hum of life support machinery. There they learn everything that can be known about flesh, bone, and blood. They study the esoteric anatomy of man and Xenos alike. They memorize the rites of purification, the uses of blessed tinctures, the formulas for painkillers that can calm even an Ogren. They read the forbidden texts of the terrible, mathematics of survival, a grim ledger that teaches when to save and when to release, because for every patient that lives, a dozen will die, and a Sister Hospitaler must learn to live with that. She must learn to keep her heart still, her mind sharp, and her hands unwavering. Mercy in the Imperium is not gentle, it's efficient, but their duty does not end at human wounds. In the galaxy where corruption lurks behind every shadow, where Xenos diseases and warp plagues twist flesh and mind alike, the sisters are often called to deal with horrors no mortal doctor could face. When a soldier's body bursts with demonic growths, when a city's water runs black with infection, when a hive's lower levels reek of decay that eats through walls, the Hospitalers arrive, armed with holy toxins and fire. If a soul can be saved, they fight for it. They will pray over the afflicted, anoint them with sanctified oils, and burn away the corruption with purgation salves. But if the taint is too deep, if the warp has touched the flesh, then their mercy turns cold. The syringe delivers death as swiftly as it would deliver healing. No ceremony, no hesitation. The body burns, the name is recorded, and the sister moves on. There is no cruelty in it. To them, corruption is a disease that must be excised before it spreads. Better to burn one city than to let the infection reach another world. It is a hard doctrine, but in the Imperium, survival has always demanded cruelty. Some orders Hospitaler work closely with the Ordo Sepulchrum, a branch of the Inquisition dedicated to studying weaponized plagues. Together, they walk among the dead and the dying, cataloging strains of viruses that should never exist, dissecting corpses that twitch long after death. Their goal is grim but vital, to understand these horrors well enough to stop them. Others turn their studies toward the psychic realm, developing methods to shield the human mind from the nightmares of the warp. Still others dedicate themselves to genetic purity, mapping bloodlines and mutations across generations to prevent entire worlds from falling to heresy. or degeneration. Every order has its own creed, its own interpretation of mercy. Some believe that to heal is to serve, that every wound closed is a hymn to the Emperor. Others believe that to end suffering swiftly is the highest form of compassion. A few see themselves as judges, deciding who is worthy of life and who has earned release. None of them are wrong, because in the Imperium, truth is often a matter of perspective. In the field, they work alongside the Imperial Guard, planetary governors, even rogue traders and inquisitors. Their presence commands respect, not out of fear, but reverence. When a Sister Hospitaler enters a war camp, soldiers lower their voices. Even the hardest veterans feel something stir inside them, not love, not hope exactly, but the faint reminder of humanity. Her calmness in the face of horror reminds them that there is still grace somewhere beneath all this blood. There are stories told in hushed tones of sisters who walked through battlefields untouched, their robes shimmering with light as they tended to the fallen, of hospitalers who refused to abandon plague victims, staying until the last one died, then burning themselves with the bodies, of one sister who faced a possessed soldier alone, reciting litanies as the demon tore at her flesh, until both were consumed by holy fire. Her name was never recorded, her sacrifice was never officially noted, but those who were there still whisper about the smell of roses that filled the air afterward. Their faith is absolute. They believe that every soul saved, every wound healed, brings them closer to the Emperor. They do not fear death. To them, death is only the closing of a door. What they fear is failure. To lose a patient is to question their devotion, to doubt their worthiness. And yet, they keep going, because doubt is another wound they have learned to live with. When the battle ends, and the smoke begins to clear, the sisters are the last to leave. They move among the fallen, checking pulses, whispering prayers. The living are marked for transport. The dead are anointed, blessed, and burned. The air smells of incense and ash. A single hymn rises above the silence, low, sorrowful, and beautiful. If you ever find yourself on a battlefield in the 41st millennium, surrounded by ruin and despair, and you see a figure in white robes walking through the smoke, do not be afraid. That is a Sister Hospitaler. She will not ask your rank. She will not ask your sins. She will ask only one question. Can you still feel the Emperor's light? If your answer is yes, she will fight to keep you alive. If your answer is no, she will give you peace. They are the thin line between compassion and duty, between faith and fanaticism. Their mercy is both a blessing and a weapon, and yet, without them, the Imperium would drown completely in its own cruelty. For all its iron and fire, for all its endless war, the Imperium still needs healers. It still needs someone to kneel beside the dying and whisper that their pain has meaning. It still needs sisters of mercy. They are not remembered in statues or songs. Their names are lost to time, their deeds buried beneath endless wars. But somewhere, in the silence after battle, when the guns stop and the prayers fade, the Emperor's light burns a little brighter because of them. So when you think of the heroes of the Imperium, do not think only of the Space Marines or the Saints. Think of the Sister Hospitaler, standing alone among the dead, her robe stained red, her hands steady, her voice calm. She carries no sword of glory, no armor of gold. She carries mercy, the rarest weapon of all. And in a galaxy that has forgotten what mercy means, that makes her one of the bravest souls alive. In the roaring chaos of the battlefield, where the air is thick with smoke and blood, there walks a figure in white. His armor gleams like bone beneath the haze of war, marked with the red double helix, the sacred symbol of the prime helix, the heart of all space marine life. To mortal eyes, he looks like an angel, silent, unstoppable, untouched by fear. But to his brothers, he is something even greater. He is an apothecary, the healer of the Adeptus Astartes, the guardian of their future, and the final witness to their deaths. Among the space marines, the apothecary is more than a doctor. He is a warrior, a scientist, and a priest of biology. His hands save lives, but they also take them. His duty is not just to heal the wounded, but to preserve the very essence of his chapter, the gene seed that gives each Astartes his strength, his loyalty, and his immortality. Every chapter in the Adeptus Astartes reveres its apothecaries, for they carry the legacy of their primarchs in their care. Every drop of gene seed, every progenoid organ, is a relic of the Emperor's own design, sacred, irreplaceable, eternal. When an apothecary steps onto the battlefield, he is not there only to fight. He is there to ensure that his chapter lives on, even when its sons fall. In the heart of battle, his presence is unmistakable. While bolters roar and chainswords scream, The apothecary moves through the carnage with purpose. His armor, pure white beneath the grime, stands out like a beacon amid fire and smoke. On his shoulders rest centuries of genetic heritage, and in his hands, the tools of life and death. When a space marine falls, it is the apothecary who kneels beside him. Through the storm of gunfire and explosions, the apothecary's voice remains calm, almost tender. "Hold, brother. The Emperor is not done with you yet." His narthechium, a sacred device built into his gauntlet, hums to life, its mechanical arms unfolding like the fingers of a god. Inside are instruments crafted for every purpose: injectors, saws, drills, and sacred fluids designed to heal or to kill. He works with precision. The stim packs inject pain suppressants and adrenaline, flooding the Marine's system to keep him fighting. Healing agents seal wounds in seconds, while antiseptic clay hardens like armor over torn flesh. With the power of the narthechium, a Marine who would have died within minutes can rise again, roaring vengeance for the Emperor. But not all wounds can be healed. When the apothecary sees that the spark of life is fading beyond recall, when no amount of medicine or prayer can save the warrior before him, his duty changes. His gauntlet shifts, the carnifex unit extends, its needle glinting with cold mercy. The apothecary bows his head, places a hand on the dying Marine's helm, and whispers the last rite. "You have served well, brother. The Emperor welcomes you home." Then, with one motion, he delivers the Emperor's peace, a painless release from agony. Swift and pure. It is a terrible mercy, but a sacred one. The apothecary carries it out without hesitation, for he knows that the Emperor's will is not to let his son suffer in vain. But even as the body stills, the apothecary's duty continues. The narthechium's drills were softly, cutting through ceramite and flesh. Beneath the armor lie two organs, the progenoid glands, one in the neck, one in the chest. These are the gene seed, the holy relics of every chapter. Within them lies the genetic legacy of their primarch, passed down through generations of Astartes. The apothecary extracts them carefully, reverently. Each gland is sealed in a sanctified capsule, marked with the warrior's name, chapter, and date of death. These are not just organs, they are the soul of the Space Marines, the blueprint of their existence. Without them, no new Marines can be made. Without them, the chapter dies. That is why an apothecary never fights far from his brothers. Wherever the Space Marines go, he follows. When the battle rages hottest, he is there, kneeling over the fallen while bolt or shells scream past his head. His armor is scarred and pitted from centuries of war, but his hands never shake. He cannot afford to falter. Each life he saves, each gene seed he retrieves, is another spark of the Emperor's divine design preserved outside of battle. His work continues in the Apothecarian, the sanctum of flesh and science aboard every chapter's fortress monastery. There, he monitors the health of the chapter's warriors, studying their implants for any sign of mutation or corruption. Every recruit, every neophyte who survives the brutal trials of initiation, must pass through the apothecary's care. He oversees the implantation of the gene seed organs, ensuring that the recruit's body accepts the Emperor's gifts. He observes the changes as the mortal becomes something more, veins hardening into steel, bones fusing into armor, the mind reforged into obedience. But not all transformations go as planned. Sometimes the gene seed rejects its host. Sometimes it mutates, twisting flesh and spirit alike. When that happens, the apothecary's blade is the final answer. There is no hesitation, no pity, only the quiet understanding that purity must be preserved, no matter the cost. For the apothecaries, the greatest sin is imperfection. They carry the responsibility of guarding their chapter's sacred bloodline, the genetic memory of their primarch. Even the smallest corruption could doom their entire lineage. It is a burden heavier than any weapon, and it never leaves them. To most mortals, the work of an apothecary seems cold, mechanical, clinical, detached. But to the Space Marines, it is an act of faith. The extraction of gene seed is a ritual, each movement accompanied by whispered prayers. The tools of the narthechium are blessed with oils before every battle. The recovered organs are carried in reliquaries, bathed in light, and stored within the chapter's gene vaults, where tech priests and servitors monitor their purity with sacred machines. Some apothecaries take their calling even further. They become chief apothecaries, the masters of the apothecarian. Their knowledge of the human body, of gene forging and cellular purity, rivals that of the Adeptus Mechanicus themselves. These masters study not only to heal but to improve, pushing the limits of what the Emperor's design can endure. Some whisper that they have unlocked secrets of near immortality. that they can grow organs from memory, rebuild entire warriors from a single drop of blood. Whether true or not, such power is treated with both awe and fear. To fight alongside an apothecary is to witness calm amid chaos. When bolters roar and war cries echo, the apothecary moves with absolute focus. His voice cuts through the storm, steady, measured, confident. "Brother down, 20 meters. Cover me." And without waiting for an answer, he charges into the fire. Imagine the sight, a figure in white armor, stained with red, dragging a wounded marine from the rubble. Bolter shells explode around him. The ground shakes, but he doesn't stop. His narthechium hums as he works, sealing a wound, injecting a stem, dragging the body to safety. He saves one life, then runs to the next. Every second counts. Every heartbeat matters, yet he knows, deep inside, that not everyone can be saved. Sometimes, he must leave the living to tend to the dead, because in the Imperium, death is not the end, it is the continuation of duty. A fallen marine's body becomes the seed for future warriors. His sacrifice lives on in the flesh of those who will replace him. The apothecary's work ensures that this cycle never breaks. The weight of that knowledge is immense. Every mistake could cost the chapter its future. Every failure is a scar that no armor can hide. The apothecary carries that burden in silence. His face rarely shows emotion, but inside, he remembers every brother he could not save. He remembers the faces behind every extracted gland. He remembers their last words, their oaths, their final prayers. There are tales told among the space marines of apothecaries who went beyond their orders, risking everything to save a single brother's life, of one who carried a wounded captain across an entire battlefield, under fire, only to die as he reached the extraction point. His last act was to hand over the gene seed he had saved. His name is carved into the walls of his chapter's vault, honored not as a healer, but as a saint. Others speak of apothecaries who fell to temptation, who experimented too far, who sought to perfect the gene seed beyond the Emperor's design. Their creations became monsters, abominations of flesh and steel. They were executed, their vaults sealed forever. The line between devotion and heresy is razor thin, and the apothecary walks it every day. Still, they endure. For 10,000 years, the apothecaries have served in silence, their deeds overshadowed by warriors and heroes. They do not seek glory. Their victories are not measured in battles won, but in brothers saved and legacies preserved. To them, honor is not found on the field. It is found in the quiet hum of the narthechium, in the steady rhythm of a beating heart that keeps going because of their handout to the outside world. They are the angels in white armor. To their brothers, they are the hand of mercy, the keeper of life, and the final judge. They embody the paradox of the Imperium, strength and compassion bound together by faith. When the war is over, and the battlefield lies silent, the apothecary walks among the dead. He kneels beside each fallen marine, removes his helm, and offers a prayer. One by one, he recovers the gene seed, each vial placed in a sacred case. There are no tears, no words, just reverence. Every fallen warrior will live again, reborn through the work of his hands, and when he is finished, he stands alone among the corpses, his armor gleaming pale beneath the smoke. The wind carries whispers. In the Imperium of man, survival is never free. Every breath, every heartbeat, every second of life is a debt paid in blood, faith, or flesh. When the guns fall silent and the smoke clears, those who still breathe are often the unlucky ones, broken, burned, half alive. And when the Medicae are done, when the surgeons and the Sisters of Mercy have finished their work, what remains is not always human. Because in the Imperium, to live after death is not a miracle, it's a transaction. The wounded soldier wakes to the hiss of respirators and the smell of oil. The light is cold, sterile. He tries to move, but one arm no longer obeys. Where flesh once was, there's steel, heavy, humming, alien. Tubes snake beneath the skin. Servos whine softly as the limb responds to a thought that no longer feels like his own. A voice echoes from above. A tech priest, red-robed and chanting binary prayers. The flesh is weak, the priest intones, but the machine endures. Bionics are salvation in the Imperium, and they are also the price of survival. The Officio Medicae and the Adeptus Mechanicus have turned the act of rebuilding the human body into something close to worship. Every augmetic arm, every ocular implant, every vat-grown organ is sanctified before it touches the flesh. Each screw and cable is blessed with sacred oils. To replace a human limb is to commit an act of devotion, a reminder that the flesh is temporary, but the Emperor's work through the machine is eternal. But to the one who wakes beneath those cold lights, it doesn't feel holy. It feels wrong. The new arm doesn't ache, but it doesn't feel either. The new eye sees perfectly, but it sees the world in red and green lines of data. The new heart beats stronger than before, but the man who owns it feels less alive. On the battlefields of the galaxy, bionics are everywhere. Guardsmen with metal legs march beside tanks, their steps synchronized to the rhythm of the engine. A veteran's arm ends in a mechanical claw that clicks with each motion, each click a ghost of the limb he lost. Even the lucky ones carry small implants, filters in their lungs, lenses in their eyes, ports in their necks. The Imperium calls it progress. The soldiers call it the price. For most of them, it's not a choice. A wounded guardsman has no luxury of decision. When the Medicae finishes the surgery, he wakes either whole or rebuilt, and sometimes even that is more mercy than most receive. Those who can still fight are fitted with crude augmetics, patched together from scavenged metal and salvaged machine parts. A shattered arm might be replaced with a clanking prosthetic that doubles as a weapon, a built-in Las pistol, an industrial cutter, a crude claw. It's not elegant, but it works. That's all the Imperium asks. But the poorer soldiers, the ones from forgotten regiments or dying worlds, are not always granted such gifts. Their wounds may heal, but their usefulness fades, and in the Imperium, usefulness is everything. Those who can no longer serve as soldiers are often repurposed. That is where the servitors come in. A servitor is what remains when a man has outlived his body, or his purpose. It is a creature of flesh and machine, a human stripped of self, rebuilt into function. The transformation is irreversible. The brain is lobotomized, the personality erased, replaced with simple code and programming chants. The result is something neither alive nor dead, a mindless servant that obeys without thought or hesitation. Servitors come in countless forms. Some are built to carry, others to dig, others to kill. On the battlefield, Medicae servitors drag the wounded on trapped stretchers, their mechanical limbs stained with oil and blood. They do not speak, they do not tire, they do not fear. Shells explode around them, but they keep moving. Their own wounds leak hydraulic fluid instead of blood. When a limb is blown off, it is replaced. When their flesh decays, it is patched. They cannot die, at least not in any way that matters. To the soldiers who see them, servitors are a warning, a promise. This is what happens when the war doesn't end, when the Emperor's mercy takes the form of eternal servitude. Many guardsmen whisper that it's better to die than to become one. Yet, when the moment comes, when the pain is too much and the Medicae offers them the chance to live, most of them take it. Fear of death makes liars of everyone. In the hive cities, where humanity drowns in its own numbers, the story is even crueler. The Officio Medicae runs entire hab blocks filled with amputees and half-mechanical workers. These places are called reclamation houses, but everyone knows what they really are: factories of flesh. The workers labor for the Mechanicus, welding, carrying, building. In return, they receive ration bars, recycled air, and the promise of simple prosthetics. Their new limbs are rough, unpolished, often second-hand from the dead. They work until they collapse, and when they do, their bodies are stripped of usable parts for others. Some never even make it that far. Those too poor to afford augmetics, too weak to work, are offered a different deal: servitude for life. They sign, or are made to sign, a decree of conversion. Their brains are harvested, their nerves rewired, and they wake as servitors, voices gone, wills erased, hands replaced by tools. The Mechanicus calls it recycling humanity for the greater machine. The ecclesiarchy calls it a purification of purpose. The people call it damnation. Still, the servitors serve. On starships, they maintain engines that no one remembers how to build. In cathedrals, they polish marble floors until their metal fingers wear down. In the cold halls of the Mechanicus, they chant binary prayers in perfect unison. They are the backbone of the Imperium's labor, its industry, its medicine, its war. Without them, the Empire would collapse in a matter of days. But for every man who becomes a servitor, there was once someone who hesitated, someone who looked into a mirror and asked, "How much of me is left?" That question haunts the Imperium more than any heresy, because in a society that worships both the divine and the mechanical, where the soul and the circuit are one, what does it mean to be human anymore? There are rare moments when this truth pierces even the most loyal minds. A Medicae may look at a patient and wonder whether saving his body is the same as saving his soul. A guardsman may see his own reflection in a servitor's blank eyes and realize that his future is already written in steel. A Sister Hospitaler may offer last rites to a man who technically isn't dead, just overwritten, yet the machine must endure, and so the cycle continues. Some among the Adeptus Mechanicus whisper that servitors are holy, that by removing thought, emotion, and individuality, they bring humans closer to the machine god. Others disagree, saying that servitors are merely tools, not worshippers. The truth doesn't matter. The servitors themselves do not care. They cannot. On the battlefield, they are everywhere. A wounded guardsman hears the whir of treads beside him. A Medicae servitor rolling into view, its optical lens glowing red. Metal claws grip his body, lifting him effortlessly from the mud. He screams, but the servitor doesn't react. Its voice module clicks once, releasing a burst of static. Then it injects a coagulant through a steel needle and seals his wound with a burst of white foam. The pain fades. The soldier breathes again. He looks into the servitor's face and sees nothing. No recognition, no compassion, no mercy. Just the reflection of his own fear. Too many servitors are the perfect soldiers. They don't hesitate. They don't question orders. They don't sleep or hunger or dream. But they also don't live. The same implants that make them efficient also erase what made them human. Their obedience is infinite, their silence eternal, and that silence spreads across hive worlds and forge planets, across regiments and starships. The line between man and machine grows thinner every day. For every human who survives thanks to bionics, another loses himself to the machine. For every hero saved by surgery, another becomes a cog in a system that forgets his name. The Imperium calls it progress. The priests of Mars call it perfection. But the soldiers who watch their friends return from the Medicae, they with empty eyes, they call it the price of survival. There are stories whispered among the guard of soldiers who begged for death rather than augmentation. One tale tells of a sniper who lost both eyes in an explosion. The Medicae offered him bionic replacements, lenses capable of seeing through smoke and darkness. He refused. He said he would rather go blind as a man than see as a machine. They called him a heretic. He was executed for defiance. Others tell of those who embraced their augmetics too fully, who began replacing more and more of themselves until no flesh remained. Their hearts became reactors. Their voices became vox emitters. They no longer needed food, rest, or faith. The Mechanicus welcomed them as ascended. The ecclesiarchy called them soulless. No one can say which is worse. In truth, every life saved by the machine is also a piece of humanity lost to it. The Imperium's strength depends on this sacrifice. It must. There are too many wars, too many dead, too many bodies to bury. So they rebuild instead of mourn. They reforge instead of remember. The machine is faster than grief, and yet, somewhere deep within the hum of servo motors and the hiss of pneumatics, there remains a spark, a flicker of what once was human. A servitor might pause for half a second before following a command. A cyborg soldier might still dream of touch, of warmth. A Medicae might whisper the name of the man beneath the metal, even though he will never hear it again. These tiny, fleeting moments are the Imperium's last proof that the soul can survive even under. Far away from the trenches, far from the roar of bolters and the sermons of the chaplains, lies another battlefield, one without glory, without banners, without end. It is not fought by space marines or guardsmen, but by ordinary men, women, and children. They are the civilians of the Imperium. The forgotten billions who make the great machine of humanity turn. Their world is not one of conquest or victory. It is survival, slow, grinding, endless survival. They wake each day beneath skies stained with smog, their lungs filled with dust and chemicals. They work until their hands bleed, until their backs bend, until their bodies break. Factories thunder without pause, mines collapse under the weight of centuries, and hive cities rise higher every year. Monuments of metal built on the bones of those who came before. To be a citizen of the Imperium is to serve, and to serve is to suffer. Every hour is a prayer to the Emperor. Every breath is an act of obedience. The citizens do not dream of freedom. They dream of one more day without pain. Healthcare, if it can be called that, is a luxury. On the great hive worlds, places where the population stretches into the trillions, hospitals run by the Officio Medicae exist, but they are not for everyone. The rich and the powerful, the governors and clerks of the administratum, receive treatment in towering sanctuaries of steel and light. They lie on clean beds, tended by physicians who chant in binary and carry surgical tools engraved with holy scripture. Below them, in the endless underhives, the story is different. There, the sick line up for hours in the dark, waiting for a Medicae who may never come. If they are lucky, a field nurse from the Orders Hospitaler passes through. One of the Sisters of Mercy, her white robes gray with soot. She sets up a small clinic beneath a rusted overpass. Her altar surrounded by the wounded and the desperate. Her voice is calm, her touch steady. She treats the injured with blessed water and bandages made from torn sheets. She delivers babies in the dirt, prays over the dying, and preaches to anyone who will listen that the Emperor still loves them. Sometimes, they believe her, even in the most forgotten corners of the galaxy. The Sisters of Mercy carry the light of compassion. They bring hope where there is none, kindness where there should be only despair. In the ruins of bombed-out towns, in the tunnels of hive cities, in the camps of plague victims, they whisper the same words, "You are not forgotten," and for a moment, even the hopeless feel something close to peace. But the Imperium is not kind. The same empire that sends healers also sends executioners. Its mercy is measured not in love, but in utility. When war comes, and war always comes, the civilians suffer first and last. The bombardments destroy homes, the crops die, the air becomes poison. The Orders Hospitaler return, setting up field hospitals in broken temples or under shattered bridges. Their sanctuaries are lit by flickering candles, their shelves lined with ancient tomes that describe diseases no one alive remembers how to cure. They study plagues born from Xenos spores and warp storms, hoping to find ways to resist them. They collect the stories of new weapons, toxins, psychic screams, viral bombs, so that the next war may be survived, if not won. The Sisters tend to everyone they can, soldiers, peasants, even orphans. They bandage wounds, sew flesh, and comfort the frightened. But they are only human. For every life they save, 100 more are lost. The Medicate tents overflow. The wounded fill the streets. The Sisters pray, and the people pray with them. Sometimes, prayer is all they have left. Yet, in the midst of all this pain, the Imperium's cold logic never sleeps. To those in power, a civilian's worth is measured by their labor. A man who cannot work is a burden. A woman who cannot bear children is a loss. A child too weak to lift a tool is an expense. And so, when the resources run low and the food runs out, mercy takes a darker form. Euthanasia is common. It is clean, efficient, and sanctioned by faith. The Medicate calls it a release. The priest calls it a return to the Emperor's light. The patient has no choice. A needle, a prayer, a whisper the Emperor protects, and it is over. Families watch in silence, knowing that protest would mean death for all of them. To live in the Imperium is to understand that peace often comes only through death. Not everyone who wields the tools of medicine does so to heal. In the shadow of the Inquisition, chirurgeons serve another purpose. These are not healers but interrogators, specialists trained in the anatomy of suffering. They know how much pain a human body can endure, and they know how to keep it alive long after it should have died. Their laboratories are sanctified by fear. The walls are lined with hooks, cables, and machines that hum with restrained malice. When a heretic is captured, the chirurgeon's task begins. They do not scream in rage. They whisper calmly as they work, "Confess, and you shall be saved." The screams that follow echo through the halls like hymns. To the Inquisition, this is not cruelty. It is duty, to purify the soul through pain, to protect the Imperium from corruption. This is their mercy. And so, the same knowledge that heals is used to destroy. The same hands that mend can just as easily unmake. For the civilians, there is no safety. They live on the edge of extinction, and yet they endure. In the hive cities, they work until the lights burn out. On agri-worlds, they toil in fields poisoned by radiation, harvesting crops that will never feed them. On forge worlds, they live their whole lives inside the bellies of machines, never seeing the sky. They are the backbone of the Imperium, and the Imperium breaks them daily. But even here, even in the darkest depths, there are flickers of humanity. A mother sharing her last ration bar with her child. A Medicae risking punishment to treat a heretic's wound. A Sister of Mercy singing a lullaby to a dying soldier. These moments are small, but they matter. They are proof that something human still survives in this monstrous empire. The Forgotten Front is not marked on any map. It stretches across every world, every city, every home. It is the war of endurance, fought not with bolters and tanks, but with will. Every worker who completes another shift, every farmer who plants another seed, every mother who keeps her children alive, they are all soldiers in this invisible war. They fight not for glory, but for the right to keep living one more day. And the Emperor, distant and silent, watches over them. Or so they are told. The preachers say that suffering is holy, that pain purifies, that every cut, every cough, Every death adds to the emperor's strength. The people nod, because to do otherwise is heresy. But sometimes, in the privacy of their minds, they wonder if the emperor loves them. Why does he never answer? No one dares ask aloud. The ecclesiarchy has a word for those who do, unbeliever. The penalty is death. So the people keep working, keep praying, keep bleeding. There are planets so poor that their entire populations are kept alive only by the Sisters of the Hospitaler. These sisters move from world to world aboard sanctified ships, carrying crates of medical supplies and books filled with the knowledge of ancient horrors. They treat wounds caused by weapons that no one remembers how to build. They study viruses that mutate faster than prayers can be written. They catalog the diseases of aliens and demons, because someone must. Their libraries are vast, their pages written in blood and ink, and yet, they remain kind. They kneel beside the sick, they hold the dying, they whisper words of comfort. Their presence alone is enough to make people believe that maybe, just maybe, the emperor has not completely abandoned them. When the sisters leave, the people watch them go, their ship disappearing into the polluted clouds. The city returns to its noise, its smoke, its routine of toil and death. But for a few days, the memory of kindness lingers, a spark in the dark. There is a saying among the lower hive workers, the emperor protects. But the sisters remember, it is passed from parent to child, whispered during blackouts, carved into the walls of hab units. It is a kind of faith, softer and more fragile than the imperial creed, but more human. And that is what the Imperium fears most, not heresy, not rebellion, but humanity. Because kindness is unpredictable, compassion cannot be catalogued or controlled. It is a rebellion of the soul. The line between healer and executioner has always been thin. Those who serve the emperor must learn to walk it every day. A Medicae may spend the morning saving lives and the evening ending them. A sister may pray over a newborn and then bless a weapon meant to burn a city. To serve the Imperium is to understand that mercy has many faces, and none of them are clean. Still, they endure. The civilians, the healers, the forgotten billions, they endure because they must. The galaxy does not care whether they live or die. The Imperium barely remembers their names. But they keep going, not because they believe they will be rewarded, but because there is no other choice. And maybe that is the greatest act of faith of all, to keep living in a universe that wants you dead. So when the soldiers return home, when the space marines leave and the smoke clears, what remains are the civilians, the builders, the mourners, the nameless. They sweep the ruins, bury the dead, and begin again. They always begin again, because if they stop, the Imperium falls. They are the true foundation of humanity's survival. The ones who keep the lights burning while others chase glory among the stars. The ones who prove, day after endless day, that life, even broken, cruel, and short, is still worth clinging to. In the thunder of war, mercy wears many faces. Picture two soldiers on the same burning battlefield. The first is just a boy, guardsman Bremer. He grew up polishing officers' boots, dreaming that one day he might see the lights of the hive city instead of its under-hive shadows. When his regiment is thrown into battle, he barely understands the orders shouted over the roar of artillery. Then a shell lands too close. Shrapnel tears through his leg. Pain blooms like fire. He collapses into the mud, gasping, the sky flashing red above him. His squad hauls him to the Medicae station. The field chirurgeon doesn't waste time. One look tells him the bone is gone, the muscle shredded. Still, Bremer is young, strong, and most importantly, useful. The chirurgeon injects a stim dose. Bremer's heart slams against his ribs. He feels his blood turn to lightning. The surgeon's hands are cold and sure as he binds the leg tight and whispers a prayer to the emperor. Under his breath, "You will walk again," he murmurs. Though both of them know that what waits is not a leg of flesh, but a limb of steel. Bremer lives. Weeks later, he wakes in a recovery ward, where his leg used to be. A gleaming augmetic hums softly. It moves when he wills it, but it doesn't feel. The others tell him he's lucky. He tells himself the same, but at night, he dreams of the chirurgeon's calm voice, of the click of clamps and the hiss of the syringe. He dreams of that prayer whispered over his body like a benediction or a curse. On another world, in another war, the second soldier lies dying. Brother Sergeant Marius of the Adeptus Astartes, a warrior saint of the Imperium. A tyrant's claw has pierced his abdomen. The armor around it cracked open like the shell of a broken god. The ground shakes with the screech of Xeno's beasts. But beside him kneels his apothecary, a figure in white armor, marked with the red double helix of the prime helix. The apothecary's narthecium hums to life. Needles extend, saws spin, injectors click. He floods Marius's system with pain suppressants, seals ruptured veins with coagulant foam. He works fast, his voice steady. Hold, brother. The Emperor watches, but the readings in his helm display flash red. Organ failure. Genetic degradation. The wound is too deep. The gene seed, that sacred gift from the Primarch, is beginning to fail. Marius grips his brother's gauntlet. His voice is a whisper through blood. Enough. Grant me peace. The apothecary hesitates only long enough to bow his head. He recites the litany of parting, words older than the Imperium itself. You have fought bravely, son of the Emperor. Go now to his light. Then the Carnifex emerges from the Narthechium, a needle forged for mercy, not war. One swift motion, one muted report, and Brother Marius is gone. The apothecary lowers the body gently, whispers a prayer, and begins the sacred task. The drills hum again, softer this time. He opens the armor, reaching the progenoid glands, one in the chest, one in the neck. Each is sealed in a vial of sanctified fluid, tagged and stored. These are not trophies. They are seeds of the chapter's future. From Marius's death will come new warriors, new lives, new battles. One man's ending becomes another's beginning. Across the galaxy, two patients lie still. One will wake to a life of half-metal survival, haunted by pain and gratitude. The other will never wake at all, his essence carried forward in the gene seed that defines his brothers. Reamer lives for the Imperium. Marius dies for it. Both serve the same god, the same emperor, in different ways. Both pay the same price. On every world of the Imperium, this story repeats. A medic whispers prayers over a wounded guardsman while an apothecary recites litanies. Beside a fallen space marine, the tools are different, bandages or narthecha, stimulants or carnifex, but the meaning is the same. Mercy in the 41st millennium is never gentle. It is swift, practical, and absolute. Bremer's new leg will carry him back to the front. He will fight again, perhaps die next time. The apothecary will return Marius's gene seed to the chapter's vault, where it will be implanted in a new recruit, a boy who may one day fall the same way. The cycle continues, unbroken, to patience, two kinds of mercy, one endless war. In the 41st millennium, mercy is a number. Every life, every wound, every breath is measured, counted, and weighed against the needs of the Imperium. The galaxy has no room for kindness without reason, no time for compassion that does not serve the war. What drives such cold calculations? It is simple, survival. The Imperium does not seek peace. It does not seek happiness. It seeks endurance. To exist one day longer in a universe that wants it dead. The Officio Medicate calls it efficiency. The Orders Hospitaler call it balance. The soldiers of the Astra Militarum call it luck. But the truth is far more brutal. If you cannot fight, you do not matter. Across 10,000 years, this logic has become scripture. The Medicae are taught from their first day that the Emperor's mercy must be distributed with precision. To save one man too broken to return to battle might doom an entire squad. To waste a vial of stims on a dying soldier could cost the lives of 10 others. A mistake in arithmetic is a sin against humanity itself. In the trenches, this philosophy is not an idea, it's survival. Field Chirurgeons sort the wounded by value, not by need. One soldier gasps for breath, chest torn open. He's marked red, too far gone. Another bleeds from the arm, marked green. Save him. He can still fight. There are no tears, no hesitation. The decision is made in seconds because the shells never stop falling. Move him back, leave her. He's done. These words are the sound of order in a universe built on chaos. It is ruthless, yes, but it works. It is the reason the Imperium still stands after 10 millennia of endless war. The apothecaries of the Adeptus Astartes understand this better than anyone. To them, even the life of a space marine, a warrior forged from the Emperor's own design, is secondary to the gene seed he carries. The gene seed is everything. It is the past, the present, and the future of the chapter. Each progenoid gland harvested from the dead ensures the birth of a new brother. Another sword in the Emperor's hand. An apothecary kneels beside a fallen marine. His armor gleams white beneath the dust and blood. The Narthechium hums as he retrieves the sacred organs. He feels nothing but duty. The man before him is gone, but his essence will live on in another. The equation is perfect. One death for one rebirth. The mathematics of eternity. The Astra Militarum operates on the same principle, though stripped of divinity. For every guardsman lost, 1,000 more stand ready to take his place. The Imperium does not count bodies, it counts percentages. A regiment reduced by 50% is still viable. A soldier who can still pull a trigger is still an asset. A soldier who cannot is a liability. So the Medicae stations sort the wounded into piles of usefulness. Those who can walk are treated. Those who can crawl are patched and sent back. Those who can do neither are given the Emperor's peace, a clean shot, a whispered prayer, and silence. Mercy. Delivered with efficiency. On paper, it is all so clean. Numbers and ratios, survival rates, expected losses. The administratum records it all in endless ledgers. Columns of suffering written in ink and blood. 1 million lives lost here, 1 billion saved there. To the bureaucrats of the Imperium, it is just math. To the people living it, it is horror turned into routine. And yet, within that arithmetic, within that monstrous logic, small acts of compassion still survive. They are tiny, fleeting, and often punished, but they exist. A Sister Hospitaler kneels beside a dying alien. The Ordo Xenos has forbidden such contact, but she sees pain, not heresy. The creature's skin burns from a human toxin. She studies its wounds, records the reaction, and later develops an antidote that saves Imperial lives. She is reprimanded for her disobedience, but she does not regret it. An apothecary stays on the battlefield long after the retreat order is given. The enemy is closing in, but he refuses to leave without recovering every gene seed. He recites the litany of perseverance as bolter shells crash around him. The flesh may fail, but the legacy endures. He dies retrieving the last vial. His brothers find him kneeling, hands still clutching the sacred organ. They bury him where he fell, a martyr to duty and love. A guardsman, bleeding from a gut wound, sees his friend beside him losing consciousness. He has one stim left. Regulations say to use it on himself. He's less injured, more useful. Instead, he gives it to his friend. The man lives. He does not. His name is never recorded, his action never remembered. But the act itself ripples through the world like a prayer. And in the hive cities, where the air tastes like rust and ash, civilians who have nothing still share what little they do. When the dead fill the streets after another bombing, they drag the bodies to makeshift shrines. They whisper names over faces they don't recognize. They light candles made from melted ration wax. The Emperor protects, they say, and for that moment, they almost believe it. These moments are rare, but they matter. They are the flickers of humanity that stop the galaxy from becoming entirely machine. The Imperium runs on cruelty, but it survives on compassion, even the smallest kind. Without these sparks, there would be no difference between man and servitor, between soldier and weapon. The mathematics of survival has no place for love, and yet love endures in small, quiet ways. It hides between the lines of orders, beneath the silence of soldiers, inside the brief touch of a medic's hand. In a universe ruled by logic and fire, these acts are not efficient. They are dangerous. They slow things down. They use supplies. They risk lives. But they are also the only proof that humanity is still alive inside the Imperium's iron heart. Think of a Medicae station after a battle. Hundreds lie in rows, groaning, bleeding, fading. The air smells of antiseptic and smoke. The field chirurgeon walks from bed to bed, marking foreheads with a red symbol, beyond saving. But then, he stops. One soldier stirs, a boy no older than 17. His breathing is shallow, but his eyes flicker open. The chirurgeon hesitates. The numbers say leave him, but something, maybe pity, maybe faith, makes him pause. He whispers a prayer and injects the last vial of stems. The boy lives. The chirurgeon's efficiency rating will drop. He will be reprimanded. He doesn't care, because sometimes the equation is wrong. The Imperium has survived 10,000 years not just because of its machinery and its faith, but because of these imperfections, because not everyone follows the math. The cracks in the logic are where the light still shines. The Sisters Hospitalet teach that too. Heal one is to defy the darkness. The Adeptus Mechanicus preaches that the flesh is weak, but between them lies the truth. Flesh may be weak, but compassion is strong. Even the Inquisition, cold and merciless, understands the value of mercy, though it will never admit it. There are tales of interrogators who spare heretics out of pity, of inquisitors who hide orphans instead of purging them. Each one risks damnation. Each one proves that humanity, though beaten and scarred, still fights to exist. The mathematics of survival demands that the Imperium remain efficient, ruthless, perfect. But perfection is death. What keeps humanity alive is not its efficiency. It is its defiance. Every act of kindness, every whisper of comfort, every prayer for a stranger breaks the equation, just enough to keep the machine from consuming its makers. And that is why, even in the bleakest corners of the galaxy, there is light, a candle burning in a Medicae ward, a sister tending the dying with steady hands, a guardsman sharing rations with a wounded comrade, a child whispering a prayer to a god she has never seen. These are the smallest acts, but they are infinite. The Imperium may measure mercy in numbers, but mercy cannot be measured. It cannot be quantified or controlled. It exists in the moments that break logic, in the decisions that defy reason, because without them, there would be nothing left to save. 10,000 years of blood, fire, and war have forged humanity into something both monstrous and miraculous. It endures not because it is perfect, but because it refuses to die. The Emperor's realm may be a machine of suffering, but somewhere deep inside its gears, the human heart still beats. And perhaps that is the greatest truth of all. For in the end, it is not the calculations of the Officio Medicae, nor the precision of the Apothecaries, nor the discipline of the Astra Militarum that preserve the Imperium. It is the quiet, uncounted acts of compassion that keep the darkness at bay. There can be no Grimdark without light, and it is the smallest, weakest lights, the ones that flicker when everything else fades, that remind the galaxy what it means to be human. Lohim hums under faint vox static. The voice of a Medicae whispers, "One more life." The sound fades. The last words echo, quiet but firm. The Emperor protects, and sometimes, humanity protects itself. When Bremer opens his eyes, the world is no longer the same. The light above him is white and cold, humming faintly through flickering lumens. The air smells of antiseptic, machine oil, and recycled breath. Somewhere nearby, a servo whines and a distant hymn hums through vox grills. He blinks, his vision swimming. At first, he feels nothing, not pain, not relief, not even the weight of his own body. Then, slowly, it returns. A heartbeat, a breath, a limb that doesn't feel like a limb at all. He looks down. Where his legs should be, there is metal. Thick, clunky, heavy. Cables coil like veins beneath plates of dull steel. The stump of flesh above it is sealed with pale synth skin, stitched in symbols of the Mechanicus. The joint hisses when he moves. It does not hurt, but it does not feel right either. He tries to stand, and the floor greets him like an enemy. The metal leg moves differently, too fast, too heavy. He stumbles. A Medicae servitor catches him, its face expressionless, half human, half machine. Its hands clamp around his shoulders, strong enough to crush him. A flat voice murmurs, "Rehabilitation begins. Each step is a war, each breath, a reminder." The chirurgeon's whispered prayer echoes in Bremer's mind. "You will walk again." At the time, he thought it was comfort. Now he realizes it was a command. He will walk again, not because he wants to, but because the Imperium demands it. The Emperor does not waste resources, not even broken ones. The other patients in the Medicae ward are like him, half flesh, half machine. A man with both arms replaced by augmetics polishes his new hands, as if afraid they'll rust. A woman with an artificial jaw hums hymns through a vox implant. One soldier, missing half his torso, lies suspended in a tank of nutrient fluid, wires threading into his spine. Each of them has paid the same price, a piece of themselves in exchange for survival. For some, it is a badge of honor. They speak of the machine god with reverence, claiming that their new limbs bring them closer to divinity. The flesh is weak, they say, repeating the words of the tech priests. The machine endures. To them, every augmetic is proof that the Emperor still has use for them, that even shattered men can serve. But others are not so sure. Some stare at their new parts in silence, trying to remember how their skin once felt, how it was to touch or to bleed. Their bodies move, but they no longer feel alive inside them. The metal does not ache, but it does not belong. They are not whole and never will be again. Bremer falls somewhere between the two. He practices walking, limping down the long halls of the Medicae facility, passing murals of saints and martyrs. Each step is awkward, mechanical, but it gets easier. He learns to balance. He learns to run. Yet every time the augmetic foot hits the ground, it sends a hollow echo through the floor, a sound that reminds him what he has lost. And still, he is called lucky. Across the Imperium, millions undergo the same rebirth. Some lose eyes and gain augmetic lenses that see through smoke and darkness. Others trade their arms for tools or weapons, surgical blades, data jacks, even grafted flamers. The most unfortunate are rebuilt entirely, ceramite shells covering their flesh. MINDs hardwired into cogitator rays, voices filtered through vox speakers. They no longer remember what they once were. They have become something else entirely, not human, not machine, but something between. The tech priests of Mars call this ascension. They see it as holy transformation, the perfection of the human form through metal and faith. To them, every augmetic is a hymn, every gear, a prayer, every replaced organ, a step toward communion with the Omnissiah. They do not see tragedy. They see victory. But the men and women lying in the Medicae beds know the truth. It is not victory. It is endurance. Bremer's new leg is not elegant like the augmetics of nobles or priests. It's crude, forged in haste from battlefield salvage. The plates are mismatched, the pistons slightly uneven. It was built to last, not to impress. When he walks, it clanks. When he runs, it grinds. And yet, it works, and in the Imperium, that is enough. He learns to fight again. The officers call him Ironfoot now, half joking, half proud. He marches with his regiment once more. And when he fires his last gun, he does not think about the limb beneath him. He moves like any other man. But when the battle ends, when the world goes quiet, he sits alone, staring at the metal that keeps him alive. He wonders what the Emperor sees when he looks down from his throne. Men of flesh and men of iron, all dying for his name. Does he recognize them? Does he still call them his children? Perhaps. Or perhaps the Emperor has long since stopped looking. On another world, far away, another kind of rebirth takes place, one that does not rebuild the broken, but renews the eternal. In the Apothecarian of a space marine fortress, a young neophyte kneels before an apothecary in white armor. The chamber is cold, lit by the sterile glow of cogitator panels. Around them, rows of gene vaults hum with life. Within them lie thousands of glass vials, each containing a drop of sacred essence, the gene seed of fallen brothers. The apothecary holds one such vial in his gauntlet. Inside it floats the progenoid gland of Brother Sergeant Marius, the warrior who once fought with pride, who fell to the claws of the tyrannid, who asked only for peace. Now, his legacy will live again. The neophyte bows his head as the apothecary recites the rite of implantation. The words echo like a prayer across the chamber. Through death, life is renewed. Through sacrifice, the chapter endures. The Narthesium's drill hums softly. The vial is opened. The apothecary inserts the organ into the recruit's neck. There is no pain, only the feeling of something vast and ancient taking root within him. A fire that burns beneath the skin, a pulse that is not entirely his own. The apothecary steps back, his voice steady. Rise, brother. You carry the blood of Marius now. His strength, his duty, his purpose. From this moment, you are part of the chain unbroken. The recruit stands, trembling, feeling the power surge through him. He does not know Marius. He never will. But in his veins flows the legacy of a warrior who gave everything. In the Imperium, that is the only kind of immortality that exists. From a distance, the apothecary watches. He knows the ritual well. He has performed it countless times. And yet, each time, it feels sacred. Every implantation is a bridge between the dead and the living, a link in the unending cycle of duty. One marine's death gives life to another. The math is simple, but the meaning is infinite. Bremer and the neophyte will never meet. One fights in the mud, his clanking leg dragging through the dirt. The other trains under cathedral vaults, his new organs growing stronger by the day. But both are bound by the same truth. Rebirth comes at a cost. Flesh, blood, or soul, it makes no difference. The Imperium takes everything, and in return, gives only purpose. For Bremer, that purpose is survival. For the neophyte, it is service. Both are forms of worship, across the galaxy. Medicae stations and apothecarians echo with the same hymns. The language differs, the tools change, but the message is the same. Life is a resource. It must be managed, repurposed, recycled. The human body is not sacred. Only what it can do for the Emperor is. Yet, even within this grim calculus, something deeper stirs. Something the Mechanicus cannot measure and the Administratum cannot record. When Bremer takes his first unassisted step, a flicker of pride ignites inside him. Not for the machine that moves him, but for the will that drives it. And when the neophyte looks at his reflection and feels the strength of another's life inside him, he feels gratitude, not to the machine, but to the man who came before. These feelings are not efficient. They serve no measurable purpose. But they are human. In the silence between the Emperor's endless wars, humanity survives in moments like these. A soldier relearning to walk, a recruit reborn from another's death. Small, quiet acts that defy the cold arithmetic of survival. Bremer returns to his regiment. His comrades greet him with cheers. But his eyes are different now. He no longer feels like the boy who once dreamed of the Hive City's lights. He has seen the cost of life. He has paid it. He knows that every step he takes now is borrowed time. On the fortress world, the neophyte trains under the Apothecary's watchful eyes. His body changes, his mind reshapes. The fire of the gene seed burns away what he was, leaving only what the chapter needs. When he looks to the stars, he feels the weight of generations behind him. Warriors whose names he will never know, whose deaths made his life possible. Two men, two kinds of rebirth, both serving the same empire, both giving everything to a god who never answers. And yet, perhaps that is the meaning of faith in the Imperium: to serve without question, to sacrifice without reward, to live again not for oneself, but for the idea of something greater. Bremer's leg hums as he walks into battle once more. Each step echoes like a drumbeat. The metal shines in the firelight, a symbol of endurance. He no longer curses it. It is a part of him now, a scar made solid. He raises his lost gun, and the army moves with him. On another world, the young Marine kneels in his armor, reciting his oaths. He feels the pulse of the gene seed within him, the echo of Marius's heart. In his mind, he hears a whisper, faint but unmistakable: "Fight well, brother." He rises, ready to take his place among the angels of death, and somewhere, deep in the cold silence of space, the Emperor's light flickers faintly, sustained by 1,000,000 lives, 1,000,000 sacrifices, and 1,000,000 rebirths. The Emperor's mercy is not gentle. It comes on the edge of a blade, through the scream of artillery, or the hiss of a cauterizing flame. It burns as much as it heals, and in the Imperium of man, no one expects it to feel kind. Yet even in that harshness, even in the roar of war and the grinding of machinery, there are moments, fleeting, fragile moments, when mercy takes a different form. Sometimes it comes in the quiet of a Medicae ward, in the touch of a gloved hand steadying a wounded soldier. Sometimes it's the whisper of a prayer over a dying man's lips, or the quick, practiced slice of a scalpel that ends agony before it can consume the soul. For the medics, the apothecaries, and the Sisters Hospitalet, mercy is a craft, a creed, and a curse. They are the healers in a galaxy that no longer remembers what peace feels like. They patch broken bodies and shattered minds, all while knowing that every life they save will soon be sent back into battle. Their kindness does not change the war. It simply gives it more soldiers. Still, they endure. A field chirurgeon kneels in the mud, hands slick with blood and oil. Around him, the battlefield screams. He cannot save them all. He never can. But he tries anyway. Each time he stops the bleeding. Each time he restarts a heart. It is an act of defiance against the endless machine of death that is the Imperium. An apothecary stands among the bodies of his brothers, armor stained crimson. His narthechium hums softly as he extracts the sacred gene seed from a fallen Marine. His hands do not tremble. He is both doctor and executioner, savior and reaper. His mercy is brutal but pure. He spares the living from corruption, and grants the dead a legacy that will outlast 1,000 wars. A Sister Hospitalet tends to a hive's wounded. She moves through the crowd, her robes gray with ash, her voice a calm hymn in the chaos. She cleans wounds with holy water and holds trembling hands until the end comes. To the people, she is a saint. To herself, she is simply another servant doing her duty. These healers do not seek glory. Their names are not sung in victory chants or carved into marble. When their work is done, their patients march back into hell, and they begin again. They exist in the shadows of legends, the nameless ones who hold the line between life and oblivion. And perhaps that is the truest form of mercy in the Imperium, that not the mercy of gods or angels, not the mercy of victory or salvation, but the mercy of persistence, the refusal to let the light die completely. Even when surrounded by darkness, they are the balance in a galaxy of extremes. Their compassion exists within cruelty, their humanity within fanaticism. They pray to the same emperor who demands endless sacrifice, and somehow find meaning in that contradiction, because deep down, they understand something the rest of the Imperium has forgotten. Mercy does not need to be grand. It only needs to be real. A clean cut instead of a slow death, a firm grip on a trembling hand, a final prayer whispered through tears and smoke. These are the acts that define them. Small gestures, lost amid the roar of bolter fire, yet powerful enough to remind an entire species that it was once capable of love. In the end, the Emperor's mercy is not measured by the lives saved or the wars won. It is measured by the quiet courage of those who still choose to care, when the galaxy gives them every reason not to. And in that choice, that stubborn, impossible choice, lies the last proof that humanity still exists, fragile, broken, but unyielding, Soft choral hum fades. The sound of a heartbeat slows. Then, a whisper, steady and solemn. The Emperor protects, and through his servants, we remember why. The battlefield is quiet now. The roar of chainswords has faded. The crack of last fire no longer echoes through the trenches. Only the wind remains, whispering through ruins and ash, carrying with it the faint scent of blood, oil, and incense. Across the shattered ground, the living move among the dead. Servitors drag stretchers through mud. Field chirurgeons kneel beside the fallen, checking pulses that have long since stopped. Sisters Hospitalet whisper prayers for those whose souls have already begun their journey to the Emperor. The battle is over, but the war never ends. The wounded who can rise do so slowly, unsteady on their feet. Their bandages are soaked through, their armor cracked, their eyes hollow. Some are missing limbs, replaced now with augmetics that gleam dully in the fading light. They look down at the metal where their flesh once was and wonder if they have truly survived, or merely changed into something else. Others remain behind, their bodies still and cold. For them, there is no awakening, no second chance. Their gene seed has already been harvested by careful, reverent hands, each organ sealed, each name recorded in the Apothecarian's sacred vaults. Their deaths are not in vain. Their essence will live on in future warriors. Their sacrifice will echo through generations of battles yet to come. Around them, the Medicae move with quiet precision. They do not celebrate victory. They do not pause to rest. Their work is never done. The next triage awaits, the next world burns, the next regiment bleeds. They gather their tools, pack their kits, and march toward the next scream. The wheel of war keeps turning, unstoppable, eternal. The Sisters Hospitalet gather their robes, their white garments now stained with crimson. They close the eyes of the dying, murmur blessings to the Emperor, and then return to their sanctuaries. They will wash their hands, replace their gloves, and pray for strength before doing it all again. Their devotion is endless, their compassion inexhaustible, even in a galaxy that devours kindness. The Field Chirurgeons shoulder their packs and walk back toward the firing lines. They do not have the luxury of reflection. Another bombardment will come soon. Another wave of soldiers will need their help. They know that every bandage they wrap, every life they save, will only march back into fire. Still, they go, because someone must. Above it all, the sky burns, a dull, angry red. The banners of the Imperium flap weakly in the wind, torn and stained. The world is silent except for the distant crackle of flames and the faint hum of servo motors. And somewhere amid that silence, there is a heartbeat. It belongs not to a warrior or a general, but to the Medicae, to those who fight not with bolters, but with bandages. To those who save lives so that others can lose them. To those who heal without hope, pray without reward, and work without rest. They are the unsung heroes of the Imperium, the ones who fight wars not on the front lines, but in the shadows of the wounded. Their names will never be recorded in history's grand tomes. They will not be praised by the ecclesiarchy or sculpted in marble. Their victories are quiet, a pulse returning, a wound closed, a soldier whispering thank you before sleep. But these small victories are what hold humanity together in an age where everything else is falling apart. It is easy to glorify the Space Marines, the angels of death, the living weapons of the Emperor's will. It is easy to tell tales of heroes who stand against monsters and gods. But the Imperium does not survive on heroes alone. It survives on endurance, on faith, on the stubborn refusal of ordinary souls to give up, even when there is no reason left to keep fighting. Every Sister Hospitaler who stays in a burning city to tend the wounded, every Field Chirurgeon who binds a wound under, fired, every apothecary who kneels beside a fallen brother and whispers a prayer before extracting the gene seed, every civilian who lights a candle in memory of someone they'll never see again. These are the threads that keep the galaxy from unraveling completely. The Emperor's mercy, we are told, comes in many forms, but it is not gentle. It comes through steel and fire, through the hiss of a cauterizer, through the cold precision of a surgeon's blade. It is mercy without softness, compassion without comfort. The healers of the Imperium know this better than anyone. They offer peace not through miracles, but through sacrifice. Still, they give everything. When the last hymn fades and the battlefield grows still, the healers remain, cleaning, tending, praying. They are the last to leave and the first to return. Their faith is not loud, but it is unbreakable. They believe not because they expect the Emperor to see them, but because they cannot bear the thought of stopping, and maybe that is what makes them divine. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war, but within that endless war, There are also moments, fleeting and fragile, where mercy survives, where a dying man is not abandoned, where a wounded woman is lifted instead of left, where a healer, covered in blood and grime, whispers a prayer not for victory, but for forgiveness. Those moments are small, but they are everything. They are what make the Imperium human. They are what make the suffering worth enduring. They are what remind us that even in the darkest age imaginable, light still exists, not as fire, but as a single candle burning stubbornly against the void. So as the last hymn fades and the Medicate depart, let us remember them, not the heroes who conquer, but the ones who repair, not the saints who stand in marble, but the hands that hold the dying, not the victors who raise banners, but the healers who raise lives. Because in a galaxy consumed by war, to care is the most rebellious act of all. To mend what the universe keeps breaking, to protect what everyone else has already given up on. To believe that mercy, however cold, still matters. That is their calling, their curse, their purpose. And if we listen closely, we can still hear their work, the hiss of respirators, the hum of Narthecha, the soft chant of the Emperor protects. It never stops. It never will. Because as long as humanity bleeds, someone will be there to bind the wound. So remember them, the healers, the medics, the sisters, the surgeons, the quiet heroes whose mercy keeps the Imperium alive. And, if you found this story worth hearing, if these echoes of compassion amid chaos moved you, then help us keep telling them. Like, share, subscribe. Not for numbers, not for fame, but so that their names, their deeds, their sacrifices are not forgotten. So that in a universe where everything burns, someone, somewhere, remembers that even in darkness, mercy endures. Music swells softly, a mix of choir and distant machine hum, the final words spoken slowly, reverently. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war, but even then, there is mercy. Beat of silence. Then, faint vox whisper, the Emperor protects.